All right, for our next talk, we're going to have Elizabeth Pauley joining us, who is heading up and leading one of our teams that does AI in one of our products, a product called Case Amplify, and really looking at how do we talk about using AI on our software in this case, like we're using AI to actually build the software, but we also use AI in our software, and that's really what we want to talk about. And Elizabeth's going to give us a rundown of, hey, how can you think about using AI kind of embedded in the applications you already have? So, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Grant. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of how we are using an app called Case Amplify to transform the workflows within a particular line of work, although I think its applications are pretty applicable to other areas as well, as I think you'll be able to see once I dive into the features a little bit. But to start off, before I get to the features, I wanted to just give a little bit of background on what Case Amplify is. So Case Amplify is an AI-powered case management tool that we are designing to allow caseworkers in a variety of human services to focus less on the administrative work that's a part of their job and focus more on the people that they're trying to serve. So casework is a pretty broad term, but I'm mostly speaking to casework within human services, and one of our primary focuses is vocational rehabilitation. So this is caseworkers who are helping people with disabilities to find, prepare for, and maintain employment. And within this line of work, each person is typically working with a pretty high caseload. I've heard numbers as high as over 100 clients per caseworker, and that's a lot of people to work with. And on top of that, for each client that they're working with, typically comes a lot of data entry, a lot of paperwork that they have to complete behind the scenes, both because as a caseworker, you need detailed records to reference as you try to figure out what services would be best for that person, but also because program funding is often tied to extensive reporting requirements. So making sure that the data that's being collected is both accurate and up to date is really important so that these caseworkers can keep doing the work that they're doing. So now to get into a little bit of what Case Amplify does. As I mentioned, one of the biggest pain points is data collection and entry. So one of our biggest features in Case Amplify is automated data capture. So from the first moment that a new client walks into the office seeking services, they typically start out by filling out some intake forms. They might provide some identifying documentation to the receptionist so that their case can be created and some basic information can be entered before that person meets with their caseworker for their intake conversation. And rather than this person filling out the forms and then handing those to the receptionist who then has to enter that same data into the system, they can instead just take some pictures of those documents. Oops. Sorry about that. Let me go back. They can take pictures of those documents and upload them straight into Case Amplify, and Case Amplify will analyze those documents and input that data into a case record automatically. We also support data collection in this way through conversations. So as soon as that client walks in and meets with their caseworkers for the first time, rather than the caseworker sitting and asking questions, taking notes, maybe filling out some paperwork as they go, they can just sit there and focus on engaging with the person in front of them and know that the system is in the background listening to the conversation and collecting the data that they need. And what's really great about this is the data that we're collecting, both from conversations and documents, is stored on the case in a way that it can flow right into the forms that need to be filled out afterwards. So all of that data collection and entry is automated so that the caseworkers can just focus on the people and figuring out how to best help those people. Right, now I'll go to the next slide. Awesome. So in addition to collecting data automatically from conversations, we also have this concept of guided conversations. So there are a lot of organizations that have pretty standardized interview flows. They have very specific questions they want to ask to collect very specific pieces of data. And rather than having this paper in front of them, or maybe they pull it up on their computer, the script that they're following, we have created a really nice guided interview experience within Case Amplify, where as you're having this conversation, it will display the questions that you need to ask, and AI is analyzing the conversation as you go to mark things as complete, or even mark things as missed too, and say, hey, you might want to revisit this topic. We're not sure if you collected enough information. for this specific question. And this is nice both for organizations as a whole to make sure that caseworkers across the board are following the standards that they've set in place, but it's also really helpful for newer caseworkers who might still be getting a feel for things. They might be worried about asking all the right questions and making sure they're collecting all the right information, but they can worry about that a little less because Case Amplify supports them through that whole process. So obviously, people are using Case Amplify to collect a lot of data. And what we've also done is added some different AI tools throughout the system to make that data more digestible so that caseworkers can spend less time reviewing the data and more time focusing on the results and making decisions based off of that data. So the first tool that we've added in for that is Kara, which is an AI assistant that each caseworker gets, and it has the ability to review all of the same information that the caseworker can see in the system and quickly provide recommendations on top priorities, next steps for specific cases, so that caseworkers don't have to sift through all of that information themselves. Kara can kind of help you with that. And Kara does more than just review the information. She can also do things in the system on behalf of the caseworker. So sending messages out to clients, updating data on cases. Kara can do all of that just by you sending a message. In addition to that, we also use AI summaries a lot to surface just the most important updates and information that a caseworker needs to know so that they can get right to acting on that information. So we have a case summary here that is updated every single time a case is updated, whether that means a text message was sent, a new conversation was had, whatever that may be. This is always the most up-to-date you could possibly be. And in addition to that, we provide this priority level. So we have stable, sensitive, and urgent priority levels that just indicate, how quickly you should be acting on this case. And what's really nice is this isn't just displayed on the cases page, but when a caseworker first signs into Case Amplify, those priorities will be sifted to the top so you have your urgent cases right at the top and you know what you should be addressing first when you start your day. Just a couple more features that Case Amplify offers. We also have workflows, which are really easy to create. We have this nice chat experience where you can basically just tell AI what you want this workflow to do. And in this example, say the caseworker says, hey, every time I assign a task to my client, I want to send weekly reminders that this task needs to be completed. And if it has a deadline and we're getting close to that deadline and it hasn't been completed, I would like to know about that. So once that workflow is triggered to start for a case, it will just run in the background sending those reminders for you, and it will only come to the caseworker when it runs into a problem or when that outcome, the task being completed or not, occurs. So say the workflow's tried sending a message to the same person 3 times and they haven't responded, it might be time for the caseworker to step in and do something more. So the workflow will let that caseworker know, but until that point, the caseworker doesn't have to pay attention to it, doesn't have to worry about what it's doing until an issue arises. And then lastly, we have this reporting feature, which is very similar to workflows. You just send a message saying what data you would like, and the system will query that data for you and generate a report. This is really nice both for administrators who are wanting to create reports to analyze performance and make sure that caseworkers are doing their job well, but also for creating those reports that are needed for compliance and for funding, like I mentioned earlier. And all you have to do is send a message. You don't need any technical skills for this. Awesome. So that's just kind of a brief overview of some of the AI features that we use in Case Amplify. And there were just a couple of takeaways that I wanted to highlight from those features that we've built. Using AI in Case Amplify allows caseworkers to deliver higher quality service to even higher numbers of people, both in the sense that seasoned caseworkers in the field can work through data and tasks more quickly, but also because those that are newer to the job have a lot of support built into the system that allows them to learn those processes a lot faster. And in addition to that, while I used case management as the example in Case Amplify, The app itself is very customizable, so we're also exploring ways that this app can be used in areas outside of case management, because the truth is things like note-taking and data collection, paperwork, and reporting, those are tasks that are not just part of a caseworker's job. I do a lot of those things in my daily work, and they show up in all sorts of jobs and are great examples of things that can be automated and improved on using AI in both case management and beyond. And finally, the goal of using AI in the system is not to replace the role that the human plays. It's a role that is still very much needed. The idea is just that AI can help to automate some of the more repetitive tasks that allow people to focus on what matters most, which is building those strong relationships and using their depth of knowledge and experience to discern how they can best help the people that they serve. And I think we're on to questions now. Oh.
Elizabeth, thank you. Some great stuff. Hey, back a couple of slides ago, you mentioned the fact that when you put in, you can just ask for a report. Now, a lot of times AI is not great at doing math and giving back results. How do you make sure that the results are accurate, the numbers actually add up?
Yes, that's a great question. There are a couple of ways that we handle that in Case Amplify. One, AI isn't taking numbers and just doing things with it on its own. Underneath, there's a lot of code that's happening, and it's limited to a very specific set of operations that it can carry through that are based on, actual mathematical things happening.
Gotcha. So it's actually not just AI just getting all your data and doing the thing. Yes. It's actually doing some other work underneath to get the data and pull it in. And actually, there's other code that analyzes it, not just AI. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. So kind of a follow-on question a little bit. You're dealing with a whole bunch of sensitive data. Somebody could talk about a medical condition or something like that, getting us into HIPAA. They could give a social security number, getting into some other concerns. What are the concerns about using AI with some of this sensitive information?
Yeah, that's a really common question that we get from anyone who's starting to use Case Amplify. I guess first off, we've done a lot of work to be both HIPAA and SOC 2 certified, but we take privacy of data really seriously. So within the app itself, although we're using AI all over the place, we make sure that all of the models we're using, any data that's sent to it is not actually used as training data, so it stays safe within the system. And if people still have concerns about it, we have a lot of controls within there where you can say, hey, this is a piece of information I don't even want sent to AI, period. And you have a lot of control over that, so it only sees what you are okay with it seeing.
Got it. So having those business agreements in place is important.
Yeah.
And that's why using some of the bigger providers and making sure you're paying for them and things like that and really doing your research makes a lot of sense. So last question. Now, with the stuff that Rob was doing, great stuff, but hey, if you get a marketing thing and maybe this sentence doesn't make sense or it gets something wrong, it's a big deal, but it's not somebody's life, right? I mean, here you're talking about how do you, it feels like the stakes are a little bit higher with respect to, we're recommending things for what people can do with their lives, and next steps they could take to get through rehab, whatever those things are.
Yeah.
How do you kind of deal with that? What's the kind of key to making that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of work that we've put into that as well. So as far as making sure that data is accurate, I think Dan might have touched on this and some of the people earlier in this, but anything that AI does, humans in the system have a way to review where that information came from. So if we're collecting information from a conversation, those people will be able to review the transcript and see exactly where that data was pulled from so that they can validate that it's correct. And we also have kind of this idea that anything that AI can do in the system, a person can undo or has to approve if they can't undo it. So, yeah, we have a lot of controls built into there, to account for that too.
Hey, fantastic. Hey, thanks, Elizabeth. I really appreciate it. That's some great information.
Thank you.